It's a great pleasure to host an outside speaker today. It's an event because we usually have one or two guests per year, not more than that. I think it's going to be an interesting talk, but also Badr is a very interesting person. He shifts his focus between legal theory, law to music. I think that side of his personality hopefully will come up in his talk. Anyway, Badr Tashush holds a PhD in humanities with a focus on Islamic studies from Sidi Mohammed bin Abdallah University in Fez. He has studied at a number of madaris. His work focuses on Islamic jurisprudence and its fundamentals, on Maliki thought, the history of Islamic thought and the four schools of jurisprudence, on contemporary Islamic legal theory and poetry, as well as poetry and music in Al-Andalus. He has worked as a writer and host on national Algerian TV and writes for a number of outlets such as Al-Tanwiri, Mu'minun Without Borders, and Jurhum, while also lecturing at the Anglo-American University in Prague. Badr is also, as I was mentioning before, deeply engaged in music. He is a vocalist and percussionist in Sufi sacred music and Andalusi music, and is trained in recitation and chanting in Constantine, Fez, and Istanbul. He has performed, in terms of his music, in Algeria, the Czech Republic, Italy, and Morocco.
That is also the city of Augustine of Hippo. So Hippo is the Roman name of the city, Būnī is the Islamic name, and Bonn is the French name. So this same city took different names. The shrine of Marwān Ibn Ali al-Būnī, who traveled from Cordoba in the 11th century to Al-Qayrawān in Tunisia to study Islamic jurisprudence, and then he entered to this small city, Būnī, and he taught his book, which I'm going to introduce in a while. Shaykh Abdallah Bin Bayyah, on the other hand, is a contemporary scholar. He's a Mauritanian scholar. He's the former Minister of Justice in Mauritania, involved in the renewal or reformation of the Islamic jurisprudence. He's also engaged in interfaith or interreligious dialogue in different ways. So in this presentation, I'm just trying to trace the evolution of the Maliki legal tradition, which connects these two names together from the 11th century to our time. So the objective is to, thank you.
Sometimes it's
Okay.
This
Right.
is the first.
Tracing, this is the second, that's the first after the title. Tracing the evolution of Maliki thought from Al-Andalus to contemporary Europe. Why Europe? Because the Maliki Madhab is the earliest and maybe the only Madhab or school of thought among the four Sunni schools of thought that existed and was well established and developed in European context since the 8th century. And the key questions, as you can see, addressed in this presentation are: what are the key features of this school of thought and what's its importance historically and in modern times, and also how can we benefit from this school of thought, its foundational texts, its fundamentals, the methods of deriving new Islamic rulings. So the Maliki Madhab is founded in Medina by Imam Malik ibn Anas. Actually, when we say founded, the Malik ibn Anas did not found, just inherited and transmitted what he saw in Medina. That's the city where the Prophet himself, Prophet Muhammad, and his companions lived and practiced Islamic teachings. It's said that his mother Aliyah, her name is Aliyah, she used to to tie the turban around his head and send him to his teacher, Ibn Hormuz in Medina. And she used to ask him to learn from his manners, from his good behavior before learning from his knowledge. And this actually created a very important tradition within the Maliki school of thought. Everywhere the al-Madhab is taught is always preceded by a brief introduction of the manners of conduct, the adabu talab al-ilm, the manners of seeking knowledge, how to deal with your teacher, how to demonstrate your respect and interest to the knowledge you are seeking, and also how you treat your classmates and so forth. And he collected his Muwatta throughout several years. He put there around 1,800 narrations. As I said earlier, his book is heavily rooted in the practice of the Madani people, the people who lived in Medina. Qayrawan, Tunisia, Suqilliya or Sicily became an early Maliki stronghold. From the 9th to the 10th centuries, Cordoba emerged as a major Maliki center, a new context. So they needed something really well established, well founded. So they started sending students from Al-Andalus back to Al-Hijaz or to Medina. And those who went to Medina, they picked up al-Muwatta and they memorized it, studied it with Imam Malik himself, and they returned to Cordoba, to Andalus, and they spread it there to apply that madhab for a couple of reasons, including some of the features of this school of thought, which I would explain in a while. They say Islam is the law of the state. It doesn't mean that Islam as a whole, but it's just a particular school of thought. And this explains a lot, that this is just this one way of understanding Islam and Islamic sources. Another factor mentioned earlier, the existence of written resources. Unlike other schools of thought, Malik wrote a book which contains the knowledge he inherited or he found in Medina, and this made the transmission of the knowledge, the methodology of studying Islam, and also deriving new answers, new legal answers to challenge new circumstances and new lifestyle, let's say, and easier for the people. It's a methodology based on a field of science called usul al-fiqh, the foundations or the fundamentals of jurisprudence. So jurisprudence itself has its foundations or its mechanisms or tools that lead to generating new legal answers, right? شرع من قبلنا and مراعاة الخلاف and al-amal are three features that characterize the Maliki school. There's a brief explanation of these three rulings, which I feel like they make the Maliki madhab really adaptable, or especially when Muslims live with other communities like Christians and Jews, and that was the case of Al-Andalus, for example, Sicily. Mura'atul khilaf is more like an internal mechanism. In case of inter-school disagreements, like between the Maliki and the Hanafi and the Shafi'i, sometimes the disagreement between these schools gets really hard to deal with. So this principle comes to mitigate or soften that kind of conflict. So the Malikis say that if there is a disagreement, we can make kind of compromise, right? Of course, based on some legal sources. So, for example, financial transactions viewed differently by other schools may still be deemed valid, supporting public affairs and resource circulation within society. We can find other examples from the family jurisprudence, also many issues related to ibadat, or the ritual code, and finally the principle of amal, the practice, which started as with Imam Malik himself as amal ahl al-Madina, the practice of the people of Medina, as I explained earlier. But that principle was eventually expanded and developed by the students and then the followers of the Maliki Madhab, practice of the people of Fas, of Cordoba, and so forth, based on their regional or local practices and customs, because this, let's say, the spirit of the Islamic law considers those customs as we. So al-Būnī moved from Cordoba to al-Qayrawān, who, as I said earlier, became one of the centers of the Maliki Madhab. Generously quoted and cited and celebrated in Islamic sources by scholars from different schools of thought, including Shafi'iyya and Hanafiyya. We don't know much about his early education, but the book he authored is Tafsīr al-Muwatta, the explanation of al-Muwatta. And my PhD was actually on his methodology, the methodology of Marwān Ibn Ali al-Būnī, because I was born in that city. So probably he wrote it in Cordoba, but we are pretty sure that he taught the book in Buna, in Algeria. And the mosque where he used it to teach is still there, and people are still visiting his shrine. And maybe since the 18th century, he gained a Sufi reputation. People believed in his miracles. Andalusian jurist who came from Cordoba and settled in Buna, so that's a big event for the local people. So they, until our days, they call him Sidi Bu Marwan.